What's good, everybody? Welcome into Early Edge Live as we count down to all of the NFL games today. 8 early, 4 at 4 o'clock. Then, of course, Sunday Night Football tonight, the Colts and the Cowboys. Now, real quick, tip of the cap to the speculator, because as we were coming onto the air, we cashed our first ticket of the day here at the brand, France over 2.5. Also, you don't think sports betting matters? How about a penalty kick? Last minute of the game, anybody that bet both teams to score, you cash that ticket too. But this show, it's all about the NFL. So let's bring in the stars of the show because you know what we're doing today. And look at these three minds. They are chomping at the bit and they are ready to go. Now, a man who we are sending on assignment, so he's only here for half of the time. He is the maestro. Been here since day freaking one. Maestro, good afternoon.
Great to be here. Great to be here with the best host in the business as well as Prop Stars and Sia. So let's get to it, guys.
Well, some people might think that, but this next man clearly does not. Dissension in the ranks, but I will still call him the most handsomest man in all of the Early Edge universe. Sia Najad, good afternoon.
If you could be a fly on the wall before this show, let me just say, and I know nobody's going to get this, not all sports talk shows are the same. Coach, you are the best at what you do. Bar none.
My ego really doesn't need it, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Now, finally, live from parts unknown. The man's been in the lab all weekend long. You saw him on the prop shop on Thursday. You saw him on the prop extravaganza on Friday, and he is here live with us today. Prop Stars, good afternoon, sir.
Coach, what's good? Cousin Sia, Larry, great to see you. I'm excited. Week 13, ready to get down to business.
All right, we got a lot to get to, guys, and today may be the best lineup of games we've had the entire year. I'm dead serious. By the way, because of the setup, as you can see, I'm no longer in the friendly confines. We're on the road in Florida. So if you have any questions, put them into the chat. But AB and whoever else may drop in there will answer them for you today because I'm kind of limited in what I can do. But, gentlemen, are you ready to jump in? Are we ready to jump in? Yes, the water is warm. All right, game number one, we're starting right there at the top. And Prop Stars, I'm starting with you because this is your team. This is the team that you know better than anybody else. Your Philadelphia Eagles. They're laying 4.5. The total 44.5 as a brand. Uncle Dave from the Prop Show is on Jalen Hurts over 28.5 pass attempts today. AB is on Ryan Tannehill over half an interception. Eagles first half team total. Eagles second half team total. It's the same 12.5. RJ White, he's on the Titans plus 4.5. And then Prop Stars, I'm coming to you first. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I love Jalen Hurts as well. I'm on Jalen Hurts over 218.5 passing yards. If we looked at just Jalen Hurts last 3 games, if you looked at the box scores, he's been held under this number, but this is just a great matchup against the Titans, who are the 3rd biggest pass funnel in the NFL this season. Opponents that are facing Tennessee are shifting heavily to the pass. That is because of a very, very stout run defense. They are first in rushing DVOA. They are second in EPA allowed per rush. So this is arguably the best run defense in the NFL and one of the worst pass defenses. So when opponents are facing Tennessee, they are choosing to go very, very pass heavy. Tennessee gives up 266 passing yards per game. That is the 2nd most in the NFL this season. They also don't get pressure on the quarterback. That has been the one Achilles heel for Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense all season, is when he's able to go, or when defenders are able to get pressure on him quickly. It doesn't give enough time for those routes to develop deep down the field, which is the Eagles' first choice on offense. They want to attack down the field. So this is just an excellent matchup for Jalen Hurts to air the ball out a lot. And it just really expect the Eagles to go very pass heavy in this game against the Titans. Love him over 218.5 passing yards. I'd play it up all the way to 227 yards.
Okay. Now, we talked about it on Friday that the way the Titans get beat, as you just said, is through the air. We mentioned Patrick Mahomes just a couple of weeks ago, threw for over 400 yards against the same Titans team, but they also took him to overtime in that particular game. So there's a lot working here. Now, on the other side, see, if the game script is what we think it's going to be, that means the Eagles will play from in front, which means there's a very big running back for the Titans that may not have a great game today. What do you like?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see the trend of Derrick Henry being really inefficient with his runs. His last 3 games, he's averaged 2.2, 3.1, and 2.8 yards per carry. Maybe that has something to do with a lingering injury that he sustained 3 or 4 weeks ago. But the bottom line is Jordan Davis is back for the Eagles. Now, this is a new prop. Everybody that's listening right now, this is the extra prop I promised I was going to give you that I didn't give on the Friday prop show. I gave out 4 props. This one is the 5th. And I was waiting for this line, to be honest with you, because I was waiting to see if Jordan Davis would be active. He is in fact active. I don't know if he's going to be on a snap count or not, but I do know he's going to make a significant difference, even if he plays 40, 50, 60% of the snaps. Again, 2.2, 3.1, 2.8 yards per carry over the last 3 games. His total yardage, speaking of Derrick Henry, 38, 87, 53. So the last 3 games he has been under this total, well, almost under this total in 2 out of 3, pretty significantly. And again, I think the Jordan Davis factor is a really big deal in the middle of that line. Give me Derrick Henry under 86.5 rushing yards.
And see, I just got it at 88.5. So it's still in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Meister, let me come to you because I mentioned R.J. White is on the Titans plus 4.5, and they figure out a way. They're 7-4. People are sleeping on this team as a team that covers, as a team that wins, but they tend to keep it within the number. Do you like the Titans with the points today?
Yeah, I got on it. Above 4, I still like it. I mean, Mike Vrabel as a dog, everyone knows the numbers by now, but 16-6 against the number when getting it at least a field goal, and he's won 14 of those 16 outright. So how can you not take the points? The way the Eagles defense has been trending, I know Jordan Davis coming back, but 33 points and 32 points allowed in their last 2 home games.
I wonder if the total might be something to look at here. 73 points last week with a Green Bay team that notoriously plays very, very slow, and they still got to 73. So something maybe you want to look at home if you're looking for a different way to play if you don't like the side. All right, game number 2 at 1 o'clock today. And I told you we have a ton of games to get to. Steelers laying 1 in Atlanta at the Falcons, total 42.5. Now, RJ is on the Falcons plus the 1. Larry, I told people, we're putting you on assignment today. We're sending you to an NFL game. It may or may not be this one. Do you like a play in it?
I do like the Steelers. They've been a different team since coming out of the bye. Kenny Pickett, no turnovers in 3 straight games, and TJ Watt is active. That was the big news that I was waiting for because the Steelers are a top 5 defense, both against the run in the pass when he's in the lineup, and that affects the guy on the other side, who is Alex Highsmith. 6.5 sacks in the 4 games that TJ Watt has played. I mean, TJ Watt gets a double team on pretty much every play. And Alex Highsmith, who is going for a new contract, is taking advantage in a big way. The Falcons are about middle of the pack, even though they don't throw the ball that much. They've been sacked 27 times. I think Highsmith gets him today.
I do too. And see, let me come to you because when you talk about the side of this one, Meister already talked about it, that the Steelers have been a different team. And it feels like because they historically, very few head coaches, very few quarterbacks, and maybe Kenny Pickett is the next one. He's got the ego, and now he has the team, it looks like. Do you like Pittsburgh today?
Yeah, I do. I don't know that I'm willing to bet it because the Falcons can be so scrappy. But I like, if I was going to bet it, I do like the Steelers side of it. And I do want to mention that they're a very popular defense in DFS. They're only 2,600. A lot of people are loading up on the Steelers. And I got to throw it out there. Kenny Pickett at 5,200 on DraftKings. It's not a guy I'm playing, but he is popular in some sort of high-end circles in terms of a DFS play.
And Alex, let me come to you from a prop perspective. Last week, the Steelers with TJ Watt in the lineup, they are a different defense. There's no question about that. They win on Monday Night Football 24-17. But you look at some of the numbers, especially the quarterbacks, they're very, very low. What is the lab telling you in this game?
Yeah, the lab's telling me there's going to be a lot of rushing. The Falcons run the ball more than any team in football. I think the Steelers also want to protect Kenny Pickett as well, establish the run against the Falcons defense that's very soft. One thing I wanted to hit on really quickly is I like Larry's play quite a bit. The Alex Highsmith, it's an individual defensive prop. I want people to pay close attention to these individual defensive props. You're going to see 3 different numbers for sack numbers. You're going to see 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. When sacks are awarded, oftentimes if 2 players are involved in a sack, which happens a lot, they will be issued half a sack. So if you're looking at a number that's 0.75, it's going to be a lot more difficult than to acquire compared to a half sack or a quarter sack. So there's a huge difference in between when you're looking at individual defensive props, 3/4 of a sack or a quarter sack and a half sack. So just a lot more needs to happen in order for a full sack to be registered as something to pay attention to when you're looking at individual props.
Educate and entertain, ladies and gentlemen. Educate and entertain. By the way, my man Jeffrey in the chat, he goes, it's AB's world. We're just renting apartments in it. The chat cracks me up all the time. That I don't think Sia got that joke. They just stoic, like very RJ White-ish for Sia after that joke, because he lives in a. Anyway, let's move on. Game number 3 today at 1:00. We're going Packers. Laying 4 on the road in Chicago. The Fighting Justin Fields. They're back. Fields apparently no limitations with the separated shoulder. RJ White is on the Bears plus 4.5. Maestro, I got to come to you because I need my Maestro fix in the first half of the show. With Justin Fields back, do you feel like the Bears are the play today?
I don't. Eddie Jackson is gone. The secondary is an absolute disaster. This defense is so bad right now. It's easily the worst defense in the NFL. When you talk about giving away, Roquan, or trading away Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn, and now all the injuries. So even though Justin Fields is back, for me, it would be Packers or nothing.
And Sia, I'm looking at the total here because the Bears, with Justin Fields in the lineup, they're a total over machine because they can score a lot. And as Maestro just said, they are a mess defensively. Do you like the total right now sitting at 45?
I do, and I got to point out, again, I'm not trying to make this a DFS show, but I think Rodgers is really good in DFS, and I think this is the type of game where Rodgers really wants to play it, right? Because we weren't sure if he was going to play the rest of the season, if he was going to sit out, give Jordan Love a chance. Well, if that were to happen, and it might happen maybe next game, I'm not really sure. Probably won't. But the point is, he's not going to be sitting out against the Bears, a team that he absolutely owns and a team that is decimated at the defensive level, especially because they got rid of some guys. So, I mean, I really think this is a game for Aaron Rodgers to shine. And to your point, with Justin Fields active, I think the over is certainly a play here. One thing to monitor is the weather is a little shaky. I haven't looked at it in the last few minutes, but I know there was some wind concern, but I don't think it's prohibitive. I still like the points here.
Okay, very, very good. Now, Alex, let me come to you because a play that we've played many, many times is Justin Fields rushing prop. Right now, it's currently sitting at 69.5 minus 114. Now, there might be some restrictions with that shoulder, but he's gone well over this number game after game after game. Would you have any reluctance to playing this number?
Yeah, I'd have quite a few reservations with this number. I just don't trust that his shoulder is 100%. Also, we know how easily these injuries can be re-aggravated. I think with a season that's clearly a lost season for the Bears, where they would be better suited just to focus on next year. Obviously, Justin Fields appears to be the quarterback of the future, a franchise quarterback. Why not get a top draft pick? Why risk Justin Fields in this game? I don't think he should be playing personally. One prop I do like in this game, though, is David Montgomery, his receiving prop. I talked about it last week. Cashed on the first drive. No Darnell Mooney for the Bears today. Wouldn't surprise me if Montgomery led the team in receiving, actually. We know this is a very low-volume passing offense, but he's a very good receiving running back. His receiving prop is only 14.5 yards, which I love as a play. I also sprinkled on him to have 40-plus receiving yards. You can get that at plus 600, Coach.
I just played him at 15.5 live on the show, thanks to you. So it's still in that number that you can play it. Thank you, Alex, very much. All right, moving on to game number 4 at 1:00 today. This could low-key be the most entertaining game of the entire day. And I'm not saying that to joke around. Jags, last week, dynamic. They come back, score 2 to win the game. That takes some cojones if you're Doug Peterson. Now, they're going on the road. This line has moved around a lot. The Lions now laying 1, total 51. We got plays across the board here. Uncle Dave is on Jamal Williams, under 58.5 rushing yards. And then let me come to you, Larry, because this morning on the show, you gave us a brand new Jared Goff prop. What is it?
Jared Goff loves playing at home. He loves playing indoors at 1:00. And this guy has 15 touchdowns in 6 home games. He's had at least 2 TD passes in every game, except for the Dolphins game when he threw for 1 and 321. So he was close in that one, facing a Jags defense that's better against the run than the pass. He has all his weapons back. This is going to be a fun shootout. I'm going to go over 1.5 at plus money.
I can see that happening. When you gave those stats out this morning on the show, I was like, wow, he really is a different quarterback at home. See, the more I look at this game, the more I'm leaning to the Lions because the last 5 weeks they've beaten the Giants, the Bears, Packers, yes, but they played the Bills and the Dolphins very, very tough. But the total, I think, is in play, and your two picks would play into the total coming into play as well because Jacksonville would have to play good on offense. Talk to me.
Yeah, first of all, I like the Lions. I like Larry's play, but I actually like the Lions to cover as well, covering the -1. As far as Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk, so I have props on them. Let me start with Trevor Lawrence over 13.5 rushing yards. He's hit this in 3 of his last 4 and 5 of his last 7. We know this game should be a shootout, although I think the Detroit defense is starting to play a little bit better. And for the record, part of the reason I like the Lions, is because I don't think the Jacksonville defense is what people think they are. So the big thing with Trevor Lawrence's over 13.5 rushing yards is that Detroit plays as man at a high rate, and QBs have been rushing on them quite a bit. Not only do they play man at a high rate, but they blitz at a high rate. And I think there are going to be opportunities for Trevor Lawrence to break the pocket and run for, let's say, 14 rushing yards or more. So I like Trevor Lawrence over 13.5 rushing yards. That's one that really popped to me immediately when this week started and when props came out. The other one I like is Christian Kirk. I have it at over 62.5 receiving yards. Candidly, across the market right now, it's 61.5. It has been fluctuating between 62.5 and 60.5. So obviously, I like it at 60.5. You can get it at 61.5 right now. I like it up to 63.5, maybe 64.5. He's been up and down with his yardage, but he has hit this in 2 of his last 3 and in 3 of his last 5. But the reason I really like this is because the matchup is so good against the Detroit secondary, who's not good against covering receivers, but particularly not good against covering slot receivers, where Christian Kirk usually lives. I like this game for Christian Kirk in a lot of ways, including over 62.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, he's really become a favorite target for Trevor Lawrence, certainly for Jacksonville. Chat question, Alex, let me come to you because we already played the Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns, but they're asking about his yardage prop. 246.5 is juiced a little bit to -135. Do you like his yardage today as well?
I think that number is highly efficient, personally. We're not seeing Goff really with high yardage totals. They have a very balanced offense in Detroit. I think the number's spot on, personally.
All right, very, very good. All right, that's 4 games down. We still have, can you believe it? Can you believe it? 9 more games to go. It's a full slate today, and I'm here for it. Now, this game has a lot of interest, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of interest. Jets, Vikings lane 3. They have every time I see this, I'm like, really? A 5-game lead in the division. 5. That's crazy. And the total is sitting here at 44. We got picks all over the board from everybody on the show. RJ's on the Jets plus the 3. Uncle Dave, Greg Zerline, very boring. Tickets don't matter. Over 1.5 field goals, even money. AB is on Kirk Cousins. No fly zone in effect today in Minnesota. So where do I start? Alex, you've got 2 big plays in this game. Let's start you off.
Yeah, we've got 2 big plays, 2 stud alpha number 1 wide receivers, starting with Garrett Wilson, over 60.5 receiving yards. Wilson coming off a 5-catch, 95-yard performance last weekend. He's had at least 92 receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games. And that was basically around the time where the Jets finally realized what they had on their hands, and that is an elite wide receiver 1. He was only running routes on about 70 to 75% of the dropbacks leading up to that. Finally, they made him a full-time player in this offense with a 90-plus participation rate as far as routes are concerned. This is also a great matchup against the Vikings. They're 19th in EPA allowed per drop back as well. They surrendered the most passing yards per game in the NFL this season, 27th in passing DVOA. They also bleed a lot of production to opposing number 1 wide receivers, which is exactly what Garrett Wilson is. Also, just going away from Zach Wilson to Mike White is a huge upgrade. I talked about this on the Friday show, but in Wilson's best game of his career, he had an 8.4 EPA, expected points added, a metric to measure basically how good a quarterback is. Last week, Mike White had a 16.8 EPA against the Bears. So that is the contrast between Zach Wilson and Mike White. A very, very stark contrast. Huge upgrade at quarterback for Garrett Wilson, who is an excellent wide receiver. I love him over 60.5 receiving yards. I think you can get this actually at 58 or 59 yards right now. I'd play it all the way up to 62, 63.5 yards. And then on the other side of the ball, let's go Justin Jefferson over over 83.5 receiving yards. I talk about this guy pretty much every week. I think he is the best player in the NFL right now. I don't even think it's that close, frankly. He's averaging 112 receiving yards per game. He's eclipsed this line in 8 of 11 games this season. He ranks at the top of nearly every single receiving metric. I also love the way that the Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell deploys him all over the formation, gets him lined up against safeties, gets him lined up against linebackers. There is not a cornerback alive who can handle Justin Jefferson one-on-one, much less a linebacker or a safety. The Jets are a very, very stingy defense. All due respect to Chauncey Sauce Gardner, who is an excellent cornerback, but Justin Jefferson, we're getting him at a reduced number. He's going to tear him up, in my opinion. I love Justin Jefferson over 83.5 receiving yards. Play this one up to 88.5.
All right. By the way, I just got that Garrett Wilson in at 61.5. All right. See you. Let me come to you because Mike White, the Jets are going to be playing from behind today. We expect that to happen, which plays right into your prop. Talk to me.
It does. And it's a little conflicting here because I actually like the Jets +3 in this game, but I also like Mike White pass attempts over 33.5. So that's conflicting because the general idea would be, well, he's not going to need to pass a lot if it's going to be perhaps a neutral or a positive game script for the Jets. But I really like Mike White here over 33.5 pass attempts because I think what is required to beat the Minnesota Vikings, other than just having a stout defense, which the Jets do, is throwing the ball. You're not going to run the ball super effectively against Minnesota, especially with the backfield that the Jets have, with Michael Carter being out, particularly, and of course, Breece Hall, remember him. It's through the air that you beat the Minnesota Vikings. We saw that from Mac Jones last week. And Mike White only had 28 pass attempts last week, but I expect that to tick up because of what you're going to need to do game script-wise. Again, the question is whether Mike White stays efficient. Last week, he was 22 of 28, but I'm not really worried about the efficiency here because I'm going for the pass attempts. So I'm taking the attempts, and that forgives any inefficiency we might see from Mike White. And I expect him to be less efficient than last week. Give me Mike White pass attempts over 33.5.
But Maestro, you don't think that he is going to be less efficient than last week's, which comes to your problem. I love how these just stack right on top of each other. Talk to me.
I got some great info on this game, but I do love Mike White to just dink and dunk and get the ball out on time and go over 22.5 completions because the Vikings play the number one. They play more zone than anyone else. Mike White in his career, 72% versus zone. They're going to let him dink and dunk, and that's what we need to get to 23 completions. I even like it at 23.5. I know some books have bounced it up to 23.5. But Alex, to your point, I wanted to mention who the ref is going to be. Clete Blakeman has the number one. He throws the most flags in the NFL. He throws the second most defensive pass interference, the fifth most illegal contact, and the fifth most defensive holding, which may hurt Sauce Gardner today.
Oh, there you go. But I like all of those. I've played them all myself. As many of you who are brand new to the brand, you ask all the time, do you play your own picks? We play them all that we like. And you play the ones that you like because we give you out a lot. All right, next game. And then, Maestro, I know you got to get the hell out of here. You're on assignment, big boy. You're on assignment. Got to tighten it up a little bit, boys. Tighten it up just a little bit. We got a lot of games to get to before the top of the hour. Next one, and this is the Fighting Sia Najats. The Commanders, a very, very important game in the NFC East. They are the last place team, but they are very much alive for a playoff spot. The Giants as well. The Commanders are actually the favorite in this game, -2.5, total of 40.5. I'm going to start with the Maestro because he's got to get out of here. Which side do you like? Giants are 7-4, Commanders are 7-5. Are you surprised a little bit, Larry, that the Commanders are favored on the road in this game?
Well, they just cover every single time with Taylor Heineke, even if it takes a miracle like a tip ball at the goal line from Atlanta. And this is a game where the Commanders have their bye next week, and then they have the Giants again. So they've been totally focused on the Giants. I know a lot of sharp people are on both sides. It's a 13th straight week for the Commanders without a break, and the Giants had the extra rest after Thanksgiving. But the Giants are so banged up still, even in the secondary. I got to lean Commanders.
Okay. Now, whenever we send a member of the crew on assignment, we ask only one thing. Send a pick in from said assignment. Can you do that for me, Mr. Maestro?
You will have it.
Colts, Cowboys, live from wherever the Maestro is going to be. Drive safely. We'll see you tonight, sir. Thank you very much. He is
Thanks,
the OG.
guys. Enjoyed it.
He is the OG of NFL here at SportsLine. Nobody is into it more than the Maestro. We'll see him tonight. So let me come to you, Alex, because I've got a little stat here. Terry, is it McLaurin? See, I say it correctly for I always say it wrong.
McLaurin.
Thank you. McLaurin. He needs 60 more yards. And I got this off Twitter. I apologize, whoever I took this from. I don't know. The sixth player in NFL history with at least 50 catches and 900 receiving yards in all of his first seasons. Randy Moss, A.J. Green, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, Joey Galloway. The only other 5 to have done it. Pretty impressive. Is this going to be a game where he can get said 60 yards today, Alex?
Yeah, considering his receiving prop is right around that sweet spot. I think it's sitting around 63.5 yards. Certainly a good matchup against the Giants. I think there will be limited passing volume, but I do think Taylor Heineke is going to target his best receiver being Terry McLaurin. So I think there's a good chance he goes over this number. If I were playing his over, I would prefer a matchup against an opponent that I feel like could push the Commanders a little bit. We've seen the Commanders, they really love running the football. You see a ton of Brian Robinson, a ton of Antonio Gibson, minimal passing volume. So this might not be the best game environment, but the number's low enough, and he's certainly good enough to eclipse that number, Coach.
And see, is there another name that maybe the people at home aren't thinking about that could have a potential good game today?
Well, that's the thing about Washington is that they don't do a lot offensively. I would have told you Brian Robinson if Antonio Gibson was going to be inactive. But with Antonio Gibson active there's really not a lot because in terms of secondary receivers or the tight end position, there's not a lot of guys doing anything. Curtis Samuel, since Taylor Heineke has been in there, has cooled off a little. He's just not a target guy. Jahan Dotson has been back, but hasn't done much. Logan Thomas hasn't done much at the tight end position. This is really a game on both sides where there's just not a lot of weapons. You got Saquon Barkley on one side and then just a decimated skill position crew with the Giants. And then you basically got Terry McLaurin on the other side with, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, whatever you think of them. So this is going to be one of those probably slower paced games. And it's going to come down to who makes the mistake. I think Larry's right. I think it's going to be the Giants who end up making the mistake against this stout Washington defense. So I also like the Commanders -2.5.
By the way, speaking of Brian Robinson, that people haven't seen on Twitter today, my buddy Darren Haynes, who is a local anchor in Washington, he posted the picture of the cleats. Have you guys seen this yet that Brian Robinson is playing with today? It basically says end gun violence, and it has a couple of organizations. They're pretty cool looking cleats. Everybody knows he was shot during the summer during a robbery attempt, and he has come back to play great. So you'll definitely want to take a look at that because you love your Commanders, and they're very, very cool cleats. I'm hoping that he auctions them off after the game. I don't know if he is, but they're all over Twitter if people want to go take a look. All right.
Yeah, and Coach, just one more quick thing. I was remiss when I didn't bring this up last week. I believe it was the 15-year anniversary just last week of Sean Taylor passing away, one of the best safeties of all time, in my opinion, might have ended up being the best safety of all time, who also died as a result of gun violence. So certainly the cause is great.
There's no doubt about it as well. And by the way, last night, and I guess this is selfish of me, but UFC, they had a big Jimmy V cancer night for their fights in Orlando, and Stuart Scott was the main person they played all night. Boy, that was rough for me to see all that. His office was literally right next to mine at ESPN. We talked so many times at 3 a.m. about anything under the sun, and those are moments with Stuart Scott I'll never forget, just like with Sean Taylor. All right, different ways of going, but still equally as harsh. All right. Let's move on. 2 more games at 1 o'clock today. Now, this one, it's been a long season for the Fighting Russell Wilsons and the Broncos, and more stuff coming out this week. We talked about it on the prop show, guys, on Friday. You got defensive linemen yelling at Russell Wilson. You've got Russell Wilson's head coach saying, it's all headlines. It's all you guys at home. Wait a second. You're 3-8. You're terrible. Stop it. So the Ravens are laying 9.5 after getting shocked last week with that 2-point conversion by the Jags. Total 40.5. Here's where we stand as a brand. RJ from the Tuesday show. Ravens -2. Bengals +8.5. We encourage you to watch that show live. Then Mikey also, Ravens in a teaser. Browns -1. Larry has the Ravens -8 when it was 8. The line moves all week long. And Uncle Dave has Latavius Murray under 54.5 rush yards and ABs on Lamar Jackson to throw at least 1 interception. Alex, let's start with you. Do you think is a good matchup for Lamar Jackson because people love playing his rushing props, his passing not so much? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly good spot for him maybe to move the ball or utilize his legs quite a bit. This is actually a very good Broncos pass defense. It's the strength of their team. I do think he's going to struggle passing the ball. We've seen Lamar struggle through the air recently. So yeah, I do think that the Ravens can get back to running the football quite a bit and have success against the Broncos.
It's hard to believe, Sia, that when we saw this game on the schedule 6-8 weeks ago, that it would be a 9.5 point spread, but that's where we are. I think it's too high. I think it's a stay away for me. What say you?
Oh, it's totally too high. I wouldn't be, especially at this advanced number of 9.5. There's no chance. I have very little faith in Lamar Jackson in this offense, if I'm being honest. I think the defense is pretty good, and they should do a decent job against the Broncos, who only have an implied point total of around 15 points, which is like kind of sad if you think about it.
Wow.
But yeah, 9.5, way too many points. I know the Broncos defense has wilted just a little bit, but they're against the Ravens. I just don't think they're super intimidated by this matchup, especially at the skill position. So I'd be on the Broncos plus 9.5 here, but I don't see a lot of fireworks on either side of the ball.
Okay, there's just not a lot you can play right now. And we used to be the receiver. You just can't play anything in the props market or the side market. So let's just stay away from this one. All right, the final game at 1 o'clock today has all kinds of eyeballs on this one for all kinds of reasons, and we know what they are. Browns are now laying 8 in Houston, taking on the Texans. And don't tell me the NFL did not know when they laid out the Deshaun Watson punishment that this would be the first game that he could come back and play. And Deshaun Watson will start today. Mikey has them, Ravens, Browns in a teaser. RJ, Nick Chubb, over 94.5 rush yards, minus 133, because the Houston Texans are terrible stopping the run. Then prop stars, you have another rushing prop in this game for a stud running back who sadly is on a very, very bad team. Talk to me.
I do. I've got rookie Dameon Pierce over 70.5 yards. I love this spot for Dameon Pierce. He's coming off 2 duds in back-to-back weeks against the Commanders, against the Dolphins. Those are both very stout run defenses. Now we're getting to face the Browns, who rank dead last in EPA allowed per rush, 31st in rushing DVOA. Prior to these 2 duds that Pierce had, he had eclipsed this line in 6 of his previous 7 games while averaging 95 rushing yards per game. He has been the engine of the Texans offense. If you look at a lot of his advanced metrics, he has performed so well this season. 2nd in elusive rating, only to Nick Chubb. Top 10 in breakaway yards per attempt. I love Dameon Pierce. This is a matchup where he can really get going against an absolutely terrible Browns run defense. So give me Dameon Pierce over 70.5 yards. I'd play this one all the way up to 74.5.
Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have the Sunday ticket. You don't watch some of these games that are not marquee games. Understand Dameon Pierce is legit. This dude is a stud. He runs hard, and he runs hard for 4 quarters. Love this play. See, let me come back to you because everybody is talking about Deshaun Watson. There's a reason. You take all the stuff off the field away from this. Football-wise, there's a reason the Browns gave him $30 million guaranteed. He was an all-pro when he played for the Houston Texans. This is a franchise-changing quarterback on the field. When I look at his numbers, 235.5 minus 125, pass attempts 30.5. It's almost like the sports books they're kind of flying blind. We don't know what to expect. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I expect both of those unders to hit, to be honest with you. I don't think, especially in this matchup, you really need to unleash Deshaun Watson. I think it's going to be a ton of Nick Chubb, a ton of short area passing stuff. I kind of like Amari Cooper. I was actually considering throwing out a prop on the prop show on Amari Cooper because I think he's going to get a lot of short area targets, those types of targets that are going to make Deshaun Watson just sort of comfortable throwing the ball again. With David Njoku out, I think Amari Cooper is very much in play here, but I just don't think again, in this game search, I think the Texans are going to play tough. I think they're going to run the ball effectively, to Alex's point with Dameon Pierce. And I think this is the Texans Super Bowl. There's just no question about it that this is the Texans Super Bowl because all eyes are on them in this game. So I like the Texans +8, but I think I would play Deshaun Watson's under across the board.
Okay. I tend to agree with you because both sides will try to shorten the game. And also that Nick Chubb prop, it's perfect for them to just chew up those yards, chew up the clock. And let's be honest, at 1 and whatever 9, you are right. This is the Texans Super Bowl. All right, those are the 1 o'clock games here on the early edge. We have crossed the bottom of the hour, about 23 minutes until 1 o'clock Eastern time for those 8 games to start. Now, the late slate today, we've been very, very disappointed in weeks past. But, guys, this is really, really good. First game today, maybe not so much. Seahawks laying 6.5 in L.A., taking on the Rams, about an hour from where I live normally in the friendly confines. And I saw a little ugly stat for people today. The Rams have four standalone games left this season. Thursday night football this coming week, Monday night football. They play on Christmas Day all by themselves, and then Sunday night football. Ouch. If you are a primetime viewer, and there are TV networks right now saying, can we change these games? Can we change these games? But let's remember, they were the defending Super Bowl champions, and now they're without their quarterback for the rest of the season. Matthew Stafford yesterday or 2 days ago put on IR. So now, Sia, let me come to you first, and then Alex, I'll come to you for the props. When we look at this game and the fact the Rams are on their 3rd quarterback this season, the Seahawks have to win this game, but can they win it by a touchdown?
Yeah, it's a pretty good line. I'm tempted to take the Seahawks here, but it feels a little trappish just coming right under that key number of 7. So for me, it's a stay away, but my lean would be to the Seahawks. It is a must win for them. And welcome to the John Wolford show, to Tyler Higbee and Ben Skowronek. I just don't know exactly what's going to go. Kyron Williams, I don't know exactly what's going to go on with this offense. And I think Seattle is still a team that's slightly under the radar. So if I had to bet this game, I would bet the Seahawks. But I just don't like anything on either side of the game from a prop standpoint.
You're exactly right. But there's one player, Alex, that has been an absolute stud this entire year. He's a rookie, Kenneth Walker. We've talked about him a lot. His number on the ground, 74.5 minus 135. This feels like a game that Seattle wants to come in, fast turf, fast track, get the win, and get the hell out of Dodge. How do you do that? You shorten the game and you give it to your stud running back. Do you like him in this matchup today?
I do, Coach. We have seen him struggle with efficiency recently. He is the type of back that's a home run hitter. He'll get stuffed a lot at the line of scrimmage, and then he will break off a 30-plus, 40-plus, 50-yard rush and just has that sort of game-breaking speed. So, yeah, I think this is a matchup where we're going to see him be heavily, heavily involved. If you look at his rushing attempts line, it's actually set at 19.5, juice to the over. That certainly indicates that the sportsbooks feel he will have a large workload as well. We've seen the Seahawks get away from running the football, so I think this is a great spot for them to establish the run in a game where they're favored. Also, I think what really is going to help him out the most is there is no Aaron Donald in the middle of that Rams defense to contend with today, and with him off the field, this is going to be a completely different run defense. The Rams actually have held up pretty well this season as far as their run defense is concerned, but I think you're going to see them crater without Aaron Donald.
Isn't it the first time in 8 or 9 years or in his entire career that he's missing a game? Isn't that what I saw? First time?
He's only missed a couple games in his career, so yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, Coach.
Wow, but man, he takes up 2 or 3 guys on that offensive line, allows everybody else to work around him. Huge hole, as Alex just said. That's probably a stay away across the board, and many in the chat are saying the same thing. We all agree. This next game, however, is not a stay away. This next game has all of us involved. This next game, I cannot wait for 4:05 Eastern today. Mike McDaniels, he's become almost like a cult hero down in Miami, bringing success back to the Dolphins. They're in first place, or are they? They're a half game back now of the Bills, who won on Thursday night. So they have to win today to keep up with them. So here's where we stand as a brand. 49ers, this game has gone up. Minus 4.5, total 45.5. M squared is on the Niners when it was 3.5. Maestro on the Dolphins when it was plus 3.5. That looks even better now if you like the Dolphins. He also likes Tua under 272.5 passing yards. And then Uncle Dave loves Brandon Ayuk over 4.5 catches. Prop stars, do you like Brandon Ayuk today?
I love Brandon Ayuk today, Coach. Funny you should ask. We're taking him over 55.5 receiving yards. Listen, if Brandon Ayuk played on pretty much any other team, Coach, this guy would be a household name. He's somewhat limited in cap playing in this 49ers offense. They're a low-volume passing offense. They really love to run the football. Brandon Ayuk is an absolute stud wide receiver. He's still eclipsed this line in 6 of his past 7 games while averaging averaging around 70 receiving yards per game. He's established himself as the number one option in this San Francisco passing offense, and that's with a healthy Deebo Samuel. Deebo questionable coming into this game, dealing with a hamstring injury, may or may not play. If he does play, he's struggled in the past playing with injuries. So I don't know if he'll be more than a decoy if he is active. So I love Brandon Ayuk with or without Deebo on the field today. This guy is an absolute stud. Furthermore, this Dolphins defense is very vulnerable through the air. They really struggle in pass defense. They're a much better run defense than pass defense. And then conversely, they also play very up-tempo offensively. They pass a lot as well and keep the other team on their toes. So this game has some shootout potential. I expect Brandon Ayuk to be heavily featured. Love him over 55.5 receiving yards. I'd play this one up to 58.5, Coach.
And see, if that shootout is going to come into play, like Alex just said, then probably the best game script is if the Dolphins score first, so the Niners have to play at a certain pace, because there is no other team, Packers, but they're not a successful team. There is no other team that shortens the game and has longer drives than the San Francisco 49ers. Why do you think this number's gone up for them?
Well, a couple reasons. First of all, I think they're going to, like, game script wise, I think they're going to be passing it and just playing at a neutral or almost like a negative game script because of what they fear from Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, which is part of the reason I like that Brandon Ayuk, whether it's the catch prop that Dave Richard gave out or the yardage prop that Alex gave out. I like Brandon Ayuk both ways there. But at the end of the day, I think the injuries are what's driving this line up a little bit more. Dolphins have some injuries on the offensive line. We knew Austin Jackson was going to be out. Teron Armstead is somebody who is not going to be playing in this game either. So I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing some more money coming on the Niners. By the way, the chat is really smart to point out. A few different people pointed out that they kind of like Seattle as sort of like a part of a money line parlay. Well, if you parlay money line parlay the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, you're getting almost even money on that bet. And I got to say, that's a money line parlay that I like enough to actually bet. I'm going to do it before the clock strikes 1.
To it all the time, the chat is every bit as smart as us and part of the crew, because there's a lot of times we don't think about something like that, and you can bring that number way down, play two teams that you think are going to win. Alex, go.
Shout out to the chat. Best chat in the business, Coach.
Boom. You said it. Now, 2 more games to get to, and then we'll get the hell out of Dodge and enjoy the games this afternoon and cash tickets. Oh, game after game after game. This next one, personally my favorite. You guys all know my allegiance is to those fighting Kansas City Chiefs. Tip of the cap, Patrick Mahomes, baby number 2. Luckiest kids in the world. Now, he is on pace to lead the NFL in everything. But the Bengals have his number. Joe Burrow, the only quarterback in the last 5 years to have his number. So, RJ has the Ravens and Bengals in a teaser when the Bengals were at 2.5. Mikey loves Jamar Chase today over 73.5 receiving yards. Gave it out on the morning show. Alex, do you like the matchup for Jamar Chase, who's coming back from injury? Haven't seen him in a few weeks against this Chiefs secondary.
I absolutely love the matchup for Jamar Chase against this Chiefs secondary. I personally played Jamar Chase before Mikey gave it out. I think it's a great spot. I was also very encouraged to learn that Jamar Chase could have potentially played last week, but I wanted to ensure that he was 100% healthy, which the indication is that he is. And if he is healthy, he will absolutely run roughshod against the Chiefs pass defense that bleeds a ton of production to opposing number 1 wide receivers. We also saw T. Higgins really play well in Jamar's absence. That's only going to benefit Chase when he gets on the field, because Chase is the most double-teamed wide receiver in the NFL. That includes Justin Jefferson. That includes Tyreek Hill. That is how dangerous opposing defensive coordinators view him and how much attention he commands. So when we have a guy assert himself like T. Higgins was able to do, it takes a lot of pressure off Jamar Chase. We're getting a discount on this number. I heard Mike talk about it this morning. I agree with everything he laid out regarding this prop. I think it's a great spot to get a prop that would ordinarily be in the high 70s to low 80s. And he should be close to 100% today, Coach.
Superstar wideouts, but also see as superstar quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, you never see this number. This is how good he has been this year. His number is 310.5 currently. minus 114. That's crazy. Joe Burrow is nearly at 300 also, 293.5, minus 129. We don't always get shootouts when we want them, but this certainly feels like we could today because I don't see anybody talking about the side. I don't see anybody talking about anything other than props and the total. What are you looking at, Sia?
Yeah, this one's tough because, those numbers are so high. Those yardage numbers are so high. This total is so high. So I'm a little nervous about just smashing the overs at this point. I will say I do like the Bengals, and sorry, Coach, earmuffs here. I do like the Bengals to actually win this game. I think they're catching the Chiefs at the right time. I think Jamar Chase coming back is really, really big, if for nothing else. And I think he'll be on the field a ton and he'll catch a ton of balls. But that puts T. Higgins and guys like Tyler Boyd and even Hayden Hurst in play just to see some more open looks. So I really like the Bengals offense here. I'm not touching the over. I'm not touching those yardage props in terms of the quarterbacks, but I would be looking at T. Higgins and Jamar Chase's overs. And I think Samaje Perine with Joe Mixon, it doesn't look like Joe Mixon is playing. I think Samaje Perine is a really smart play in DFS, along with a lot of players on this game, but particularly on the Cincinnati side because they are priced a lot cheaper than guys like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
All right, speaking of Travis Kelce, let me come back to you because this may be the highest number, Alex, we've seen all year. 83.5, minus 115 for Kelce. His reception is usually always at 6.5, and today it's at 7. I mean, these numbers are maybe too high to play, but not high enough to play the unders. What do you think?
Coach, if there were ever a matchup in a game environment that you would want, this is it. We've got one of the highest total on this week's slate, one of the highest totals we've seen this season. Two teams that love to pass the football. We're not going to see a lot of running. We're going to see an up-tempo game with a ton of passing volume. That's exactly the type of game environment we want when we look to play overs. Who does Patrick Mahomes lean on when going gets tough in these spots? Travis Kelce. So yep. I think this is a great spot to actually back Kelce. This is where we could see him have one of those 15-plus target games where he easily eclipses 100 receiving yards. So while the numbers do appear high, it's certainly warranted, and he is more than capable of crushing these numbers. Spike game, Coach. Spike game.
See ya, go.
Yeah, to Alex's point, and to the point of Mahomes just completely going off, I mean, the path to beating the Bengals is going to be through the air. They are going to be a lot harder to run on, especially with DJ Reader back. So I definitely think it's going to be the air show for both sides of the ball because, again, the path to beating the Chiefs is also through the air.
There's no doubt about it. And you're not offending me, Sia. I'm a very objective fan, unlike a lot of fandoms out there. I know what weaknesses we have because I see it every single week. But I'd rather be in the game than 25 years ago. I can tell you that. All right, gentlemen, 10 minutes until the start of the 1 o'clock games, and we have one more game to get to, and that is an AFC West matchup. The Chargers, they did the same thing Jacksonville did a week ago. I don't know if it's ever been done in the history of the NFL. Two teams going for two to win the game, and they both got it. So the Chargers keep their playoff hopes alive. The Raiders, an incredibly exciting win with Josh Jacobs going over 300 total yards, an 86-yard touchdown run in overtime to cash. So AB's on the Chargers first half team total over 11.5. Chargers, Raiders each to score at least one touchdown each half plus 110. You can get that at several books. Sia, you like a quarterback in this game that's kind of trending in the right direction. Who am I talking about?
Yeah, I love those bets you mentioned from AB, by the way. But I like Derek Carr over 1.5 touchdown passes. We know this game is likely going to be a shootout, in spite of the fact that I do think the Raiders are going to, assuming Josh Jacobs is fully healthy, and we'll get the reports as we approach the 4 o'clock game, 4:25 game. But I do think they're going to be able to run the ball on the Chargers, but I also think they're going to be forced to pass. And everybody knows you can pass on the Chargers. Derek Carr has 2 or more touchdowns in each of the last 4 games. He's going up against the Chargers defense, sporting one of the worst touchdown rates against opposing quarterbacks, and they're giving up a ton of yards to quarterbacks as well. So I really think this is a really good game for Derek Carr. I'm anticipating a few less touches than the 39 that Josh Jacobs had last week. But even if Josh Jacobs plays a full game and gets a full allotment of snaps, I still like this Derek Carr over 1.5 touchdown passes.
I really do too. I think the Raiders are having another classic Raiders season where they play good some weeks, but not good enough to make it to the playoffs. And Alex, as I come to you, there's a lot of players that are starting to get healthy for the Chargers, which means, as you like to say, more mouths to feed. But there is still a little number 30 that last week had a humongous game. Is Austin Eckler in play today?
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. This game has all the potential check marks that I look for in a potential ceiling or spike game, as I like to call it. This is a great spot for Austin Eckler to be heavily utilized. I also love the return of a healthy Keenan Allen will take some of the pressure off of him. I want to touch on Keenan Allen here as well. I love this matchup for Keenan Allen. I love his receptions prop at 5.5. I think this is the healthiest that Keenan Allen has been all season. We're going to see a very up-tempo game with a ton of passing. The Raiders have the worst pass defense in the NFL this season, dead last in EPA allowed per dropback. So this is a game where I could totally see Austin Eckler and both Keenan Allen having massive target share. So love both of these guys today, especially in the receiving game for Eckler. And I love Keenan Allen's yards and especially his receptions line at 5.5, Coach.
God, I hope all of these late games play out like we want them to, because it could be one of the great days we've had this entire NFL season. All right, we're just about set for the games to start at 1 o'clock. Let's throw our best bets up there. You know we like to end every single show asking my crew members, my posse, exactly the most important thing they're looking forward to today. And today might be very difficult to limit it to just one, maybe a couple of things. Alex, talk to me.
Where to begin, Coach, when we have so many fantastic matchups across the board? Your Chiefs and the Bengals look like a potential shootout, a potential AFC championship preview. And we've got the Eagles and the Titans getting to watch the best team in the NFL play against one of the most game head coaches and underrated franchises over the past 5 years. So absolutely ecstatic for this entire slate of football. I agree with what you said, Coach. On paper, this looks like the best week that we've had this season.
I love a fired up prop stars more than any version of prop stars. See ya. You're up.
Well, it's only December 4th, 2022, but welcome to the playoffs, because there are so many teams that are so hungry to win because they are going to be on the outside looking in if they don't win. Let's talk about the Commanders and the Giants. Are the Jets for real? The Chargers and the Raiders. These teams need to win. Even Kansas City. We know Kansas City and Buffalo are going to be jockeying for that number one seed. The Seattle Seahawks, who are competing still in the NFC West with the San Francisco 49ers, and also, of course, with the wild card spots, which of course the NFC East occupies across the board. These are playoff matchups for so many teams, and we're going to see it on the field for sure.
And I'm so glad you said what you just said, because I think subconsciously you did what a lot of NFL fans are doing. They're forgetting about who? The Miami Dolphins, who have the same amount of losses as the Bills. And today they play in San Francisco. If they want to stay in the fight for that number one overall seed, they need to win today as well. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to. And of course, the Chiefs and the Bengals, which I think could be the game of the year, because these two teams are starting not to like each other. And Patrick Mahomes, he's one of those athletes that when you get him stirred up, what does he do? He plays great. And he's heard all the storylines all week about how Joe Burrow is 2-0, how Joe Burrow has his number, how Joe Burrow came back from 18 points down. He doesn't want that to happen again. Patrick Mahomes will be motivated today. Can't wait to watch that game. All right, do not forget, if you are brand new to the brand, we're here every single primetime night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be back tonight to count down to the Colts and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Then, of course, tomorrow night as well, same time, same channel for Monday Night Football. Damn it, I love doing this. Even when we're outside of the friendly confines, we still manage to get it done because the crew sticks together. Enjoy the games this afternoon. There's only one more thing that we need to do, and I believe you all know what that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these tickets straight to the pay window. For my entire crew, love them all. Maestro on assignment, Sia Najad, Prop Stars, AB doing double duty in the chat, and also handling the producing duties. We're here. We're here for you. We love it. It's December. Christmas is almost here. The bowl games are almost here. Playoffs are almost here. And we're here for you at the early edge. Good luck.